And welcome again to Cottage Talk Fulham Media Buzz, the silly season update for Wednesday. And boy, do we got a doozy of a story to talk about today. And this episode is entitled, What Should Fulham Do with Mitro? There are two stories out there. Both stories have source or sources behind them in regards to the situation with Alexander Mitrovic. And I'll be going through that in the next 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to be sharing my view on it. And then also, I will be sharing at the end of the show a Cottage Talk poll I did in regards to the situation with Mitro that has some comments on it that I want to share with the Fulham supporters and why I decided to do this poll. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Also, if you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please do leave us a review. Would highly appreciate that. Okay. Without further ado, let's get to it. Let's talk about the news that broke this morning. I was thinking, what was I going to talk about today on Fulham Media Buzz? And I don't want to thank Mitro for this because I'm not happy about the story, but I do have something really interesting to talk about, something that I'm not happy to talk about, but something that I feel I should be talking about. And that's the situation with Alexander Mitrovic. I'm going to read from both stories. First, the one that broke first was from Sky Sports. And generally speaking, when I see a story from Sky Sports, I give it some weight. So I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on it. And then I also have an article from Peter Rutzler that has more details from The Athletic on this situation. So this is from Sky Sports a little bit earlier today. Alexander Mitrovic, Fulham striker, wants to leave Premier League club for Saudi Arabia as Al Hilal bid £25.5 million. Here's from the article. Alexander Mitrovic was Fulham's key player up front, scoring 14 Premier League goals last season as the Cottagers finished in the top half. The Serbian striker wants to leave the West London club after 5.5 years. I'll read some more from this article. Fulham have rejected a £25.5 million bid for Alexander Mitrovic. Sources close to the player have told us Mitrovic wants to leave the Premier League side and join the Saudi Pro League. So I'm just going to stop there. So when I look at this, and on the face of it, the first thing I always say when I do these shows about the silly season, do I believe the story? Well, it's coming from Sky Sports. I believe the story. Second, is there a source on this? Well, they have a source on this. So that, to me, gives it more weight. So I am buying the story. Unfortunately, I am buying the story. I think it's legitimate. I think there has been a bid, and I am buying it that they have a source saying that Mitro wants to leave. On top of it, I'm going to read the article now from Peter Rutzler on The Athletic. He shared this shortly, just a little bit ago. Fulham reject offer for Alexander Mitrovic from Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal. And Peter is basically saying that it is 30 million euros. Okay. So I think it pretty much comes out to the same thing. So he basically has put that in. I'm going to read from Peter's article a little bit. The Serbian international is understood to be open to the move should the club come to an agreement over a fee. However, Fulham do not want to sell their top scorer. So again, that is from Peter Rutzler. It's a very interesting situation because now we have two different media outlets, reputable organizations, have a source, as I mentioned, sources behind it. So I give it a lot of credibility. So I think there is a situation here. How badly does Mitro want to leave? How should Fulham handle that? Well, now that's where I'm going to take Cottage Talk right now. After I've read the articles, I want to just give credit to both Sky Sports and also for The Athletic, Peter Russell, for breaking this huge story. Big thing to mention is that Fulham have rejected this offer. I think it's an extremely low offer for Alexander Mitrovic. Personally, I think that it needs to be much higher. We're talking a player that is a goal scorer, that is a proven goal scorer. 25.5 million pounds is very low. It needs to be much higher. People are saying, I've seen on Twitter, double it. I'm saying go even higher than that to even consider it. Now, what's interesting about this and why I think Fulham hold the leverage on this is that Mitro has 3 years left on his contract. So this isn't someone that is going to be out of contract soon. 3 years left on his contract. So Fulham hold the advantage here. They totally do. They have the leverage. They don't have to sell Alexander Mitrovic at all. They don't have to do it. So then it becomes the question, well, what do you do if he wants to leave? And that should be something that you should be concerned about. But in the end, I'm going to share my opinion on what I think Fulham should do. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say this once again. I've gone back and forth on this because the argument is if a player doesn't want to be at your club, maybe the best thing to do is to sell him because you don't want a player that doesn't want to be there. This situation for me is a little bit different for a couple of reasons. First of all, Fulham need to keep their core players to kick on. They absolutely do. They need to re-sign Marco Silva. That's an ongoing saga. But they need to keep their core players. They just re-signed one of their key players, Anthony Robinson. They need to keep Mitro. They absolutely do. I know what happened with the situation in the FA Cup, but Mitro has been a Fulham player, a player that the supporters love. He is settled in London with a family. So, again, I'm surprised that he is considering leaving. I do buy the stories, but he's also been settled here. So it's a very interesting situation that both Mitro and the club have. But the club here hold the advantage here because they have 3 years left on his contract. They don't have to sell him. They absolutely don't. He could be upset. But you know what? There was a point where Mitro was considering leaving a couple seasons ago, and he talked to Marco Silva. He talked to Tony Khan, and reportedly, and they were the ones that convinced him to stay. So I think that they need to convince him to stay. Honestly, Fulham cannot afford to lose Mitro. They absolutely not. Can you get a lot of money for him? Yes, you can. And you should try to do that if you decide you want to sell him. But Fulham should not be selling him if they want to build. If you sell him, then you're in the replacing game again. Fulham should not be in the replacing game if they want to stay in the Premier League long term. I've used the example of Wolves when they were forced to sell a key player, Jota, and I'm telling you, it backfired on them. Great money, but you are in the replacement game. If you want to build, if you want to be the type of club that I think you want to be in Europe, then you need to keep Alexander Mitrovic. He can be kicking and screaming. I don't know if it's at that level, but I would rather keep him being a little bit upset than selling him. For me, the player is more valuable than the money that you can get from him. That's what I identify as a core player. So you can offer $60 million. I'm still not selling him. Fulham should not sell Alexander Mitrovic. Absolutely not. They don't have to do it. I'm telling you, Fulham should hold their ground and not sell Alexander Mitrovic. Should they have a conversation with him? They absolutely should. And you know what else that they should do? Because I think this could be in play as well. I'm sure that Alexander Mitrovic was offered a lot of money to go to Saudi Arabia. So what I think Fulham need to do is up their ante and offer him a new contract. I think they absolutely should do that because I think he is a valuable core player. I think he is probably on a good amount of money right now. I know what the reports are, but you know what? I think it's in their best interest to up the ante on Mitro, offer him more money. That could be a part of this because I know he's got an offer, but he might also want more money for Fulham. He might be using the Saudi Arabian offer to get more money out of Fulham. I don't know, but I know agents have done this before. It's a common ploy. That could be at hand. I don't know. I'm speculating. But my opinion is you do not sell Alexander Mitrovic. Absolutely not. if you have the aspirations that I think you do. He would be very hard to replace. Can you find another striker that can score goals? Yes, but he fits in perfectly with Marco Silva's system. He fits perfectly in with Fulham. The supporters love him. Do not sell Alexander Mitrovic. This is a huge test for the Cons here, because there's only one case that I can remember where they were really fully forced to sell a player, and that was Ryan Sessegnon, and they did sell Ryan Sessegnon. There have been many cases where they played hardball and they did not sell. I go back to Moussa Dembele, the second Moussa Dembele, and Ross McCormack, when there was a lot of pressure on them to sell in January, and they did not. They did not sell the players. There was reports that potentially Dembele was close, but they never sold him. They absolutely did not sell him. Dembele left that summer and McCormack left, but they needed those two players to stay in not the Premier League, but the championship. In this case, they need Mitro to kick on. They absolutely do. So for me, Fulham need Alexander Mitrovic, and the fans love him, and he might be upset right now, but he's played several seasons with Fulham Football Club. And I think if you offer him a new deal, hopefully he will take it. I think that's what Fulham need to do. But they should not be taking an offer for Alexander Mitrovic. Absolutely not. If you have the ambition that I hope you do, that the fans want. And if you want to stay in the Premier League long term, getting rid of your striker just really hurts you. It really does. So for me, it's an absolutely big no. I understand the argument. I've had people argue with me that if a player wants to go, let him go. In fact, I was going back and forth on that because I was upset that he was interested in leaving. But then I thought about it. I really gave it some thought. And for me, if I want Fulham to be where I want them to be, Alexander Mitrovic needs to be part of Fulham Football Club this season and seasons to come. So for me, what should Fulham do? They should offer him a new contract and do not sell him. That's what I think Fulham should do. Okay. Coming up next to end this episode, I'm going to share some poll results. The poll is still going, and some comments on it in regards to the poll that I put up on the Cottage Talk Twitter page about Mitro. Okay. To end the show, I decided, because I was going to do a podcast today, that I would put up a poll on the Cottage Talk Twitter page, because I was curious how Fulham supporters are feeling about this. And I can tell you that I've seen so many comments, so many tweets that are very upset about this, and I don't blame them. So here is the poll that I put up that's still ongoing. I have a good amount of votes. I have 232 votes as I record the podcast. Here's the poll. If Mitro wants to leave for Saudi Arabia and they offer a fair deal for him, should Fulham sell him? So again, 232 votes. Yes was at 40.9%. No was at 59.1%. So that's a good amount of votes. So obviously the majority of fans do not want Fulham to sell Mitro. But there's a good amount that are in the camp that, you know what, sell Mitro. Sell Mitro. If he doesn't, I'm feeling that maybe it goes on the lines that if he doesn't want to be here, sell Mitro. But the majority, 59.1%, almost 60% are saying no, don't sell Mitro. And I'm with them. Fulham should not sell Alexander Mitrovic. So as I go through this, just want to mention that I have a lot of comments on it, and people were upset about this. I understand why they're upset about this. I totally do. And some were upset at me for even doing a poll. So I'm going to share all that. And I just wanted to say to everyone that saw my tweet about the poll, and certainly wasn't doing it for clickbait. I wasn't doing it to upset anyone. I just wanted to get a feel for how people were feeling about the Mitro situation, because I was doing a show. That's the reason. So Fulham Mike put this up. Is this a serious poll? And then he put these tweets, and I'm going to share them with you. If anyone thinks we should be selling an irreplaceable player in our system 5 weeks before the season starts, then it's time to find a different sport. Then Mike follows it up. The results on this are mental. Trouble is when you sell a player for big money, other clubs know you have money in the bank. No club has ever moved forward long term by selling their best players. Mike, that's a great point. And that's kind of the point that I'm making on this. Very good point, because if you want to be in the Premier League long term and also move up the Premier League, then you can't be selling your core players. So, Mike, I do agree with you on that. This is from Carol Ring. Definition of a fair deal, 70 million plus, certainly not 25. That's insulting. Carol, I totally agree with you. This is from D. Lorraine FFC. If he wants to go and they offer 50 million pounds, 100% yes. We all know Mitro has his mood swings. A sulking Mitro would be about as much use as a pirate with a wooden leg. Interesting thoughts there, Dale. Now, this is from Dave Lovell, and Dave points out to me, and Dave, I understand where you're going. I'm going to take this poll down. It's the last thing we need right now. This is serious, not trivial clickbait stuff. Okay, well, again, like I said, it is serious, Dave. I respect your views on why you feel this way, but I just disagree with the reason for me doing this was I felt strongly that I just wanted to get a feeling for how the Fulham supporters, this to me wasn't clickbait. I respect your view that you think it is, but that's not why I intended to do it. I'm sorry if you feel that way, Dave. Really, I do. I want to apologize to you and anyone that was offended by me doing a poll about this, because that was never what my intention was. My intention was just to get a feel for what people were thinking, because I was about to do a podcast. Didn't mean to offend anyone. So this is from someone else on Twitter. If it's a huge offer and we have a viable replacement or two ready to go, then possibly. That's the whole thing. You have to find a replacement. It goes into the game of replacing players instead of adding. And I want to be adding, not replacing. This is from Bad Minded. I put yes based on if he wants to leave. If any player doesn't want to be there, then I'd rather they went. End up bad for dressing room. Interesting point there. I do understand that point, but I'm still of the mindset that he wanted to be there. He's wanted to be there for several seasons. We convinced him to stay a couple seasons ago. So hopefully after this settled, the dust had settled, and Fulham rejected any offer, that he would have a change of heart. That's the way I look at it. But I understand where you're coming on that. This is from Mark Holiday. What is a fair deal? To him, to us, or to him and us? To get his like a replacement, they would have to spend minimum 50 million pounds. If they offer to treble his wages, they could afford to pay more for him. Pay him his worth. My take, players, Mitro wants to be the highest paid. New FFC deal coming. Now, that's my point, Mark. Show him the money. That's my point. I think this is about the money with Fulham. That's just my opinion. So we'll see. I think Fulham should offer him a new deal, give him a lot of money, and hopefully that will change things. Money seems, in some cases, not in all cases, it can change things. But this, to me, could be about the money. It really could be. So show him more money. Can you match what the Saudis are offering? Probably not, but you could certainly offer him more money. So that's what I would do if I'm the Khans and Alistair McIntosh. Show him more money. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. And one last thing, just want to update the poll before I go. And again, it's got several hours to go. Right now, I have 239 votes. And yes is at 41%. No is at 59%. So that's a pretty decent amount and a good difference there. So the majority of Fulham supporters at 59% think that Fulham should not sell Mitro, even if a fair deal was offered by the Saudi teams. And I'm in agreement with them. But I understand why there are Fulham supporters that are saying if he doesn't want to be there, sell him. I get that too. But I want Fulham to push on, and I think you need Mitro to do that. I don't want to be in the replacement game. I want to be in the building game. So that's where I'm going on that. Okay. Well, before I go, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Cottage Talk is part of the talkSPORT fan network. You'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks, and I'm glad to be part of the talkSPORT fan network. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the talkSPORT fan network.